We're in Way Media.
Right, Mr. Walters?
You see that guy over there? Now, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Good evening and welcome to Night Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I'm HP, your co-host, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you this evening?
You can't see it at home, but this is what it looks like when I talk.
We'll get to that. We're talking Taxi Season 3, episodes 18 and 19. That's right. This is a multi-part episode. On the Job, parts 1 and 2. This was written by Dennis Danziger and Ellen Sandler. Directed, of course, by James Burrows. Reminder.
Sandler and Danziger together again. S&D.
They said it would never last. Reminder, we're doing these shows in broadcast order, not in order of filming. Father Malone, this is another in Taxi's seasonal tradition of pickup episodes. Now, to refresh our listeners' memories, can you explain what a pickup episode is?
Well, in Taxi's case, it seems like all the best bits that they had left over from the writer's room that didn't fit into any particular episode, they gathered them together and concocted a scenario wherein they can tell those stories, kind of like an anthology.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good explanation. They're shot piecemeal on the cheap, usually after the main episode is done filming. They just kind of probably using existing sets and things. It's an inexpensive way to amass an anthology type episode, a show of vignettes, if you will. That's what we have here. We saw it before. The most famous one is probably Memories of Cabby at 04, which we all remember from the first season. So
right, and that had that one of my favorite segments of the entire series, just that Danny DeVito and Tanner from the Bad News Bears.
That is a good one. Don't forget that show, that episode was the origin of the adjective to getting patinkin.
Oh, Patinkin, that's right. Manny Patinkin was in that episode. He came in and he was so mandy.
I would implore everybody to go back to the season 1 of Night Mr. Walters. Listen to it was just as funny then as it is now. I'm sorry if anyone is coming into this blind, but go back, pause this, listen to that, and come back. Welcome back, everybody. Here we go. We open this episode.
You assume they actually went and listened to the episode.
Sure.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. We open this episode in the garage as Jim, Alex, and Elaine are playing cards at their usual spots around the poker table. Tony walks in, asks everyone, "Why aren't you driving?" And Elaine mentions that Louie's been in a meeting with Mackenzie, the boss, and the other garage executives for an hour, which actually begs the question, who knew that this ramshackle garage actually had a team of executives? It was almost like this board that is, it's like a corporation. It makes it seem kind of more elaborate than it probably should be. Don't you think?
Yeah, I thought it was just some one guy running the place, and he has lackeys and underlings, and it was all very hush hush and, below board.
Yeah, it was sort of a surprise, and we'll see these executives come out, and it looks like, the board of AT&T or something. It doesn't look like a.
I thought it was a couple of writers.
Yeah, probably in real life that's the case. Tony presses for more info.
Tony is he's just the narrator here, right? He's just, everything he's saying is just letting us know what the plot is for this episode.
He's the audience proxy. I think you're right on this. That's really the big purpose that he serves in the early goings of this episode.
Sandler, Danziger, do better.
Bobby is also wondering what's happening, but no one knows. And Latka, the one person who claims to know what's happening is Latka. And he says...
He does know, though. This is the only good part of the wraparound segment.
He does. He says that, and he has good reason he has it on good information so he says the company is broke. Latka tried ordering parts for cabs today, and everywhere he tried to order them from, they said the garage credit is no good. The news is hitting everybody very hard, which is amusing because they do nothing but complain about how crappy this job is normally. So, but now all of a sudden they seem to be clinging to this job like grim death. It's got them all
Well,
very worried.
they all like the idea that they can leave the job. They don't like the idea of the job leaving them. I mean, for God's sake, they consider themselves the lowest of the low, and now the lowest of the low are dropping down a further level.
It's a good point. It's always better to leave a job on your own terms rather than get shown the door through getting fired or laid off or what have you. So that's a good point there, Father Malone. Louis finally emerges from this meeting along with a phalanx of suits, basically, that this coterie of executives, so to speak, of the cab company. They all briefcases. They file down. Louis is really upset. He's ranting. It's all your fault. You did this. He says this to the cabbies. He complains that the cabbies' need for safety and security now means that they don't have jobs. Now, the cabbies all freak out a little bit about what they're going to do, but the one cabbie who isn't totally, who looks at this as maybe a blessing in disguise is who, Father Malone?
It's Elaine Nardo.
It is Elaine. She has a good perspective on this. She's sick of driving and is taking this maybe as a sign to start fresh somewhere else. And her attitude is actually kind of contagious, and the rest of the cabbies start to look on the bright side. Maybe it is time to get out of the hack business.
Hey, speaking of hack or hackneyed, can we just set a date and get together and tell each other a bunch of stories? Oh, what a good idea.
Gather around the campfire and tell stories of jobs. Why don't we do that?
1 month from today, we're going to meet at Mario's around the campfire.
She says they'll all get together at Mario's in a month. They'll tell each other all about the new jobs they'll get, which excites everybody except Louis, who's scoffing at their optimism. Alex asks Louis how Mackenzie took it, and Louis says, don't worry about it. Right now, he's brainstorming and he's sure to figure a way out. And just at that moment, a gunshot rings out from Mackenzie's office, and all the cabbies react in shock. Yeah, how funny is this?
Oh, man. Remember when Mackenzie killed himself?
It's a workplace shooting. How funny is that, everybody?
Suicide is painless. Oh, wrong show.
The cabbies all have this shock on their faces as we fade out to the same Mario's facade B-roll that we've been watching since season 1.
Actually, we got a random shot of Times Square, which we've seen half a dozen times, I'd say.
That's true.
It into the same two dudes entering Mario's. Like they are on a loop, those two. They're the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the Sunshine Cab Company, or Mario's anyway. Or maybe they're ghosts. Maybe we're just seeing that that's the last moments of their lives entering Mario's, and then they were gunned down.
You might be onto something, because one of the guys that walks in is a dead. I said this before. He's a dead ringer for the Fonz. He has a leather jacket and dark hair and jeans. And I think he actually opens the door for his buddy to walk into Mario. So maybe it's because this is what the 1980s. The Fonz was around 20 years prior. Maybe it is the ghost. Maybe the Fonz didn't get over the shark, right? Maybe he didn't jump the shark. Maybe he died.
HP, I think you just have a thing about guys in motorcycle jackets. You call them all Fonzies. It's weird.
He looks like
for
Fonzie.
Decades.
I'm telling you, look at this guy. You'll draw the same conclusion. But anyway, we cut inside Mario's as Elaine comes in. She joins the cabbies at their table. They're all sitting around.
Must be a month later. Let's tell some stories, everybody.
Everyone's so excited to see everyone. And Elaine mentions that she hasn't seen anybody since that terrible day in the garage.
Because none of us have phones.
Well, they don't have cell phones. They do have, I'm sure they have landlines at their
That's what I'm
apartments.
saying. They're all going home at night and sitting around and I wonder what Elaine's up to,
Well, I guess, are we led to believe that their friendship has a limit? Maybe they're just friends out of convenience, and once you remove them from the garage, they're no longer friends?
That's absolutely not the case, at least in the case of Bobby and Tony, because we know they're best friends.
I guess in fairness, we don't hear Bobby and Tony saying, hey, I haven't heard from anyone in a month. So they're probably burning up the telephone line, chattering. It's only Elaine that appears to be on the outs from everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it technically could be like, hey guys, Tony here has been working in collections, and oh yeah, and let me tell you, Bobby's been doing bunny work.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll follow this this presumption that everybody has been out of touch. Maybe specifically because they wanted to surprise each other with the tales they're going to spin of life in the job market. Oh, by the way, we do learn that Mackenzie didn't actually shoot himself. He shot his accountant. So that gunshot you heard is not, it's even worse.
Murder.
Murder. No,
Hilarious.
he didn't, I don't think he murdered him. I think he just injured him. I don't think it's actually, I don't think he killed him.
You can't confirm that.
I guess not. So after the pleasantries, they get right down to telling what they've all been up to. And the first one up is Tony. And as you said, Father Malone, he got a job collecting money for a local bookie, but
He's a leg breaker.
Yeah, he's fulfilling his dream of becoming Rocky, because that's what Rocky did in the first Rocky movie, right? He was collections for what was his name? Gazzo? Was that the name of the bookie?
Yeah.
The guy, take her to the zoo. He had the driver who was always taking pot shots at Rocky. So great.
Joe Spinell.
I thought he was a wonderful actor, and I thought
Joe
in
Spinell?
particular he was great. Yeah.
Joe Spinell's great, man. He's in The Godfather.
He is. Essentially, Tony has become Rocky. He's doing collections for a bookie, but he says that after a while the moral problem started to get to him. At this point, we cut to B-roll of a church. I don't think we've seen this church B-roll.
No,
I don't think they've had any reason.
This is new. I was very excited to see. First of all, to see a church, because this is an ungodly show being run by the devil in the form of Randall Carver.
We forgot about Randall Carver. We cut inside the priest's office. I guess, is that what you call it? Is it the rectory? I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah.
Tony goes in and he's the priest has let him in. Tony has trouble knowing where to start. He's troubled and he's trying to talk to the priest. The priest encourages him, just tell me what's bothering you. Tony tells the priest about how he lost his job and how he couldn't get any other job but debt collecting. And he insists that he never hurt nobody. To which the priest says, look, Tony, I hope you didn't come here for approval. But Tony, being the gentle giant, look, we know that Tony is a coiled spring, ready to lash out. He's animalistic at times.
How many did he kill back in the jungle? Too many.
He's maintaining this Bickle-esque veneer of civility. And he says to the priest, look, if I didn't do the collecting, someone else would who wasn't so nice.
That is true.
He's got a point. I don't necessarily agree. We've seen him go off and almost kill people with his bare hands. So I'm not really buying it, but nevertheless. The priest says, look, if you don't think it's wrong, why have you come to me so troubled? To which Tony replies, you owe $300 and it's overdue. So the priest, right. This is the twist.
This whole segment is predicated on this stupid joke.
It is. It's really a punchline that takes the next ensuing 5 minutes to resolve. So Tony asks the priest, how could you let this happen? And the priest, this is actually kind of,
this is
I have
great.
to say,
yeah.
This is funny stuff. I don't remember I don't recall the actor who played the priest, but he's very good in this little vignette. The priest says he gave the locker room prayer for the Giants that week, and the team looked so up for the game they couldn't lose.
It's the best. It's like insider trading, like he basically got a tip by seeing how pumped they were. But again, a judgment call.
The priest says, look, I don't have the $300, but he takes out this watch and he launches into the story about how it was a personal gift from the Archbishop. And Tony says, look, I can't take that. And the priest takes that
Cash
as
only, Father.
Well, yeah, he says, yeah, this is Lulu won't take watches. The priest offers to talk to the bookie personally, and they all go off to the bookie's office. Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Here's where it gets really fucking interesting.
It's kind of odd. We cut inside the bookie's office, and it's Lulu. Now, he was Tony's manager. People, eagle-eared listeners might remember we talked about the episode where Tony's boxing license was revoked, and he became like Kid Rodriguez was his. He assumed the persona with the mustache and the sideburns, and that was only earlier this season. So not only is this the same actor that played his manager in that episode, but the character has the same name. They're both named Lulu.
Yeah,
I think it was Lulu Pantuso.
Yeah. We pointed that out because I was convinced that that was one of the inspirations for Cheers. And here, Lulu has taken a turn.
Are we led to believe, Father Malone, that this is the exact same character as that earlier Out of Commission episode?
It's
Same guy.
it is the same guy, and it is the same character name, and he's dealing specifically with Tony. But the last time we saw him, he was 100% about preserving Tony and his dignity. And now he wants Tony to beat the shit out of a priest.
This totally threw me for a loop because I've seen this episode probably a dozen times. Oh, here and there over the
By the
years.
way, you mentioned John O'Leary, the priest there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I think you will probably remember him mainly from the last Starfighter. Isanjay.
I spaced on that. I should have looked at his IMDb a little closer. He's great here. He's very funny,
Very natural.
very natural. He starts when he's initially talking to Tony. He's got that very benevolent, priestly kind of high moral character thing. And then when Tony drops the bomb that he bet on the Giants game, it's like he shifts and he's like, "Oh, it was such a short thing." How it's a very good performance by this actor.
And he doesn't go straight to panic. That's the thing. He gets real like explanatory and conciliatory, but he doesn't really get panicked, I think, until we get to Lulu's.
Right. Because I think he knows that Tony's really not gonna beat up on him. There's no way. He recognizes that Tony is a softie at heart, or at least he thinks he's a softie. Maybe he's wrong. Tony and the priest enter the office, and Lulu insists that the priest pay up in cash, but Tony, is being a pushover, insists that he pay off the debt for the priest. It's actually kind of a nice moment because the priest says, "No, no, 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 don't do this." And he said, "Look, it's easier for me, Father, if I do it this way. Believe me." It's actually a very clever solution for Tony to resolve this moral dilemma that he's found himself in. I mean, it's worth it to him to pay the $300 than to have to, work out in his head how he's going to get the priest to pay up otherwise.
Well, he knows the priest will be good for her.
But Lulu, and I actually think this is kind of a nice touch too. Lulu sees Tony reaching into his pocket to get the money, and he reasons that he can afford it more than Tony could afford it, and he reluctantly takes the watch from the priest anyway. But I thought that was actually very Gazzo like, because despite the fact that the bookie and Rocky is this shady character, he actually really loves Rocky, and in fact, I think he goes to the first couple of fights. He goes to those two Apollo Creed fights, the first one and the rematch. He supports Rocky in that way. So that's kind of nice that Lulu gives him a break. He says, "Look, I can afford it. I'll take the watch, Father. You get out of here." The priest thanks them both and he leaves. And Tony is really excited that Lulu took the watch. And Lulu responds very sarcastically, "I will treasure it forever." And then he walks over to this giant armoire and he opens it. And it's filled with watches and necklaces and statuary, and like there's a crown, I think, in there somewhere. So you get the
The
sense
mobile
that
pinup shop, mobile
Yeah.
pawn shop.
it's like a little pawn shop in an armoire. And these are all other situations where he, took the easy way out. Tony reminds him that it's Friday and he really needs it's payday. He needs his money. And Lulu reaches into the armoire, and in a nice little meta bit of humor, he pulls out an Emmy Award and gives it to Tony and congratulates him. I just
Yeah,
thought that
but
was kind of funny. Yeah.
so is that them saying that the Emmy is worthless or only worth a couple $100, or is it them letting Tony Danza know this will be the last time you will ever hold one of these?
First and last time. I don't know. Was he ever nominated for Who's the Boss or anything?
He was not. He was nominated once for Who's the Boss.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't far off. I just thought it was funny. Even like Tony has this funny look
As
on
I
his face.
said, this is the last time he would ever hold an Emmy,
Pretty
unless he was
much.
presenting. And
Yeah.
you know what? I take that back. He's actually kind of famous for accepting Emmys for people who weren't at
On
the
behalf?
ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That used to be a big thing. Yeah.
So in a much crueler twist of fate, he keeps
Yeah.
accepting Emmys that are not his.
That are not his. So at this point, we fade to commercial and we fade back into Mario's as Tony tells
The
Elaine
second
that it's-
B-roll, the other B-roll of Mario's, where that one guy goes in.
It's the same facade, but it's a different B roll. So now it's Elaine's turn to tell her story of a new job. And she says she worked as a secretary at a big high rise downtown. The first day, she's waiting for her boss, wondering what he's like. And now at this point, we cut to Elaine sitting in an office as a silver haired gentleman in a gray suit comes in. He's demanding to see Mr. Givens. He's very angry. And he demands to know where he is to Elaine. And Elaine, after a little bit of she fumbles a little bit, she offers an excuse for where her boss is. And at this point, this delights this man who informs Elaine that he's Mr. Givens. He's George Givens. I didn't do my homework on this guy. He's really the star of this vignette. It's not Elaine, it's this guy.
Bill Wiley is his name. And I think you might know him from Porky's 2 the next day. So saith the shepherd, so saith the flock. He's hilarious there. He is a character actor extraordinaire. He's been in fucking everything. I remember him from a particularly hilarious episode of Cheers. Bill Wiley.
He's so good here.
He's great here.
This is his vignette. It's not really Elaine's. Elaine sort of puts things into motion, but she just lets this guy, George Givens, go.
Yeah, they're 2 for 2 here because I'll tell you what, if George Givens was suddenly put in charge of Sunshine Cab Company and occasionally would come down from the upstairs area and act like a total lunatic before going back up, I'd be fine with that. I'd also be fine if Father Leary here, John Leary was the actor, but if he came by every once in a while, I'd be cool with that too.
They have a knack, especially in these last few episodes, of casting these sort of side characters, especially ones like you said. The fact that some of these people popped up on Cheers later is a clear indication of the affection they have for some of these character actors. But this guy's fantastic in this. After he discloses that he's George Givens, he goes on to give Elaine his philosophy. He says he's been with the company for 23 years, which is a record, and it's because in a very Costanza-like way of life, he's maintained a degree of anonymity. He says some people know his name, some know his face, but very few know both. And he just he's so pleased with himself for these little strategies he's built up for himself. He says over the years, he's figured out ways to continue this anonymity. He slinks in and out of meetings. He never says anything of substance in any meeting. He only laughs after the laughter is started, and he stops laughing before everyone else has stopped laughing. So he's kind of like this ghost in this company.
He's like Newt in Aliens. You know, she's like, he's got his spot. Newt comes out at night, grabs some food, takes it back, hides.
For 23 years, he's been able to avoid any real exertion or anything like that. So, but then Elaine, and this is a little peculiar, I have to admit. Now, I didn't know that Elaine had a business degree or anything, but she says she's read some of Mr. Givens's reports and she was impressed with his brilliance. She insists that these, his ideas should be heard, that they're worthwhile. But Givens is ambivalent because that will upset the apple cart of this carefully maintained facade that he's built up over a quarter century of working at this company.
After a quarter century, if he's going to say anything, it better be gold.
Right.
Because all it'll do is go, you've been here for how long? And this is the way you think?
Very prophetic words, Father Malone, because we cut to a meeting with a bunch of these suits, and Elaine's there, I guess we presume, taking notes for Givens.
It actually doesn't make sense that she's in there.
Well, look, I've been in my share of meetings like this, but you're right. I've never seen a secretary in there like taking notes. It is a little weird, and that would imply that the rest of these executives should have their own secretaries in there taking notes. But the room is filled with just a bunch of guys and Elaine.
I guess the idea is if they want to have the scene with him actually standing up and doing his thing, that she needs to be in the scene as well. Otherwise, we're no longer watching Taxi. We're just watching some other story.
It's the only way that this would work, because he would never get the guts to do what he's about to do if Elaine didn't encourage him. Elaine takes one last shot as this meeting is finishing to convince Mr. Givens to give his report. And he worries that they'll fire him if they don't like his ideas, but Elaine is certain that all they'll do is disagree if it comes to that. They're not going to do anything any more serious than that. She finally convinces Givens And he makes this impassioned report to the assemblage. And honestly, it sounds like a half-baked idea. Like it's just a bunch of half-baked notions. He wants them to divest themselves of everything worthwhile except for nuclear weapons, hospitals, and t-shirts. It's this bizarre rant that he goes on, and he basically says something at the end like, and if I'm wrong about this, then my 23 years here have come to nothing. In typical Elaine fashion, in her usual mothering way, she gets this really self-satisfied look on her face after he gives this impassioned presentation. At that point, we fade back into Givens's office as he's taking this cardboard box with a plant out of his office. This is the universal sign in television of fired when you've got this cardboard box.
Yeah, that's right. Those lawyer boxes.
Yeah. Like you've gathered up all your effects and they're fit into this little box.
There's usually a medium-sized plant sticking out the top. That that's the equivalent of a baguette in a paper bag in a office environment. Right. Is the plant sticking out of the cardboard box as you're being fired.
Elaine feels awful about what happened. I love this line that Givens gives. I've transcribed it here. Givens says, "It's the silliest thing. All these years I've been so frightened of being fired. And now that it's happened, it's far more hideous than I ever imagined." Because you think, as a viewer, you think he's going to go, I thought it was going to be awful.
Liberated.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elaine, for setting me free. No, it's even more hideous. And by the way, use of the word hideous somehow just makes it rams it home, like how terrible this is for this man.
He's feared this for 23 years, and it finally has come to pass. Elaine admires a picture of his family in the box, which Givens then informs her that it's not his family. That picture came with the frame because you see the other executives look askance at somebody with no family.
And here's my favorite line.
Yeah, he's even invented. He's like, well, that one that's.
I call the boy Skipper.
He says he chipped a tooth the other day. And then he talks about his daughter who's married, and he's a little concerned because the husband seems to drink a little bit too much. He's got this elaborate backstory for all the people in this picture.
Gotta have your cover story fucking down, man. If you're going to infiltrate the office and pretend that you're working there.
There's something to be admired about somebody like Givens, who has devoted so much time and effort to something so meaningless. Like, he's basically just been a slacker for 23 years and was good at it. He was successful. So Givens and Elaine say their goodbyes, but Givens stops on the way out and asks Elaine if he can buy her dinner. He can still charge one last meal to his expense account. Elaine replies, she's not sure if she should do that for the company that she works for. And Givens corrects her, used to work for. You've been fired too. And after getting over the initial shock, Elaine says something like, let's break them. And they go out and probably have a grand old time at
Lobster Thermidor was the hat by all.
Is that an 80s thing, Lobster Thermidor?
I think it's actually a holdover from the 70s. Like, I think by the 80s it was already kind of passe, but I think it held in people's minds that it was somehow fancier than it actually was.
What actually is Lobster Thermidor?
No idea.
No idea. It's like Oysters Rockefeller. It's one of these,
It's a mystery that'll never be solved.
It'll never be solved.
It's got to be a way of cooking it, right?
Or the sauce, or maybe it was like, first made at the Hotel Thermidor or something.
I got to look it up. Lobster Thermidor is a French dish where lobster meat is removed, cooked in a rich, creamy sauce, and then stuffed back into the shell.
Sounds like a lot of work for nothing.
It sounds actually really ghoulish when you say it like that. The meat is ripped out of the animal's skeleton. Its exterior skeleton. We cook it up, and then we put that meat back in its external skeleton for you to suck it out of and eat. What is the benefit of putting it back in the carcass back into the? Does it absorb extra flavor or something, or does it just make you feel like, wow, I'm pulling this out and it's the most delicious meat ever?
I think it's got to be the presentation purely, you would think, because I don't think there's any culinary benefit to putting it back in the unless it keeps it moist or I don't know, succulent. I'm not a
Is it a
lobster guy
stuffing
either.
situation? You know what I mean? You cook it in the bird.
Your guess is as good as hey, look, listeners, if you're a fan of Lobster Thermidor, you know the answers to these questions. hpmusicplace@gmail.com. Send me an email.
You're eating sea bugs. They're bottom dwellers. They eat fecal matter.
They used to be fed to prisoners because they were considered the lowest of the low of on the food chain. We cut back to Mario's, and now it's Jim's turn to give his tale of and this is going to be the. By the way, I'm predicting this is going to be the quickest recounting because it's really a lot of this is just a visual joke. It doesn't make any sense for me to go blow by blow. What happens is he
Yeah, I was
took a
gonna say
job.
if you could burn through this, that would be great because I actively hate this one.
We're going to burn through it.
This joke, which you see coming from the moment they fucking open the door,
Yeah.
is painful to watch. I've seen variations in dozens of shows. They all do this fucking stupid joke, and it's always annoying and never funny to me.
This is completely vaudeville. I know we level that accusation at the show many, many times, but this is pure vaudeville. Jim is a door to door salesman, and we cut to an apartment where this woman is serving herself a meal at a quaint little table. I think she's serving herself like Salisbury steak or something with grease in it.
It's not
The doorbell
lobster
rings.
thermidor.
Maybe it's lobster thermidor. I don't know. The doorbell rings and it's Jim coming in with this big suitcase and he fumbles through this introduction. He gives her a pitch that he's selling a vacuum cleaner called the Magic Carpet Wizard. The woman obviously is a little thrown by Jim being Jim, but reluctantly agrees to have him in and he does his spiel. The next several minutes of this the majority of this vignette consists of Jim throwing more and more stuff on this carpet. He starts with like an ashtray. There's milk, there's ketchup, there's sugar, there's grease. He even grinds it into the carpet with his shoes. The whole point is like the woman is getting increasingly worried. Like, is the vacuum cleaner going to take care of all this? And he says they wouldn't call it the carpet wizard if it didn't. Finally, Jim is prepared to show the vacuum cleaner in action. He opens up his case to reveal an encyclopedia. Dun, 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 dun. Vaudeville.
Vaudeville.
Jim then realizes that he didn't get the vacuum job. He's actually selling encyclopedias. And that's it. That's the whole vignette.
Can you believe they built a set for that?
And it's a very charming little set. It reminds me of like this little quaint little apartment, probably in some fancy high rise. Yeah, they built a whole set for this, just for him to do this bit of physical comedy. But here's a side note, Father Malone. Do you remember when encyclopedias were a real thing?
Of course. I had a great set of encyclopedias. I lived in my encyclopedias. It was the only way to gather knowledge when we were that age. I'm telling you, every report I gave, up until high
Yeah,
school was no doubt drawn from my set of encyclopedias.
me too. I mean, the danger with encyclopedias, especially my set, is it encyclopedia or encyclopedias? Can you
Encyclopedia.
pluralize that? Okay. The set that the danger was the set was out of date almost as soon as you took ownership of it. Because I think mine was, I think it ended maybe just after or right around the space shuttle. I think the development of the space shuttle, and this was, we're talking like high school. This was 87, 88 for us. So it was already out of date by the time we had it. But like you, I mean, I consulted it many, many times for term papers and reports and that sort of thing. It was very
Yeah,
useful.
I wouldn't turn to an encyclopedia for current events, but
Right. Yeah.
the Pleistocene era that's not going to change much.
That's a good point. It was kind of nice to have this repository of. I remember also years later when the PCs started to become a thing, and you could get an encyclopedia, full encyclopedia on one CD-ROM,
Oh my God,
and it
the
was
future is
revolutionary.
now.
It was because you could pop it in, and instead of like having to go to the book and find it, you could just type in a search term.
Instead of having to open up this highly alphabetized series of books and sliding your finger down to the pertinent information. Now you could boot up the CD-ROM and wait and loading and loading and
No, no,
wait
no.
and
Because,
loading.
but it wouldn't just tell you where, like if you were searching for Napoleon, you would also find other references to Napoleon that didn't maybe appear under N. So it was actually pretty handy. I refute your argument, your sarcastic argument over there, smug.
So much better than the old encyclopedias with their handy dandy knowledge that you can access at any time without electricity. Anyway,
Look, I miss encyclopedia. I thought it was a fun thing to have in the house, and I guess we've. I mean, I wonder at what point did encyclopedia just stop being a thing? Was it
internet. As soon as the
the
internet was
internet?
available and you could type in what is this thing and the answers would come up, that's when it was over.
Sure, I guess that's it. Anyway, that's the one thing I took from this. I was like, oh, remember encyclopedia? That was kind of cool.
I still have mine though. I sleep on them at night.
You
I've made a
still
bed out of them.
I told you we'd burn through this Jim vignette, and that's it. So
Thank
we cut.
God.
So we cut back to Mario's, and Alex asks Latka
One
about his job.
last joke.
Yeah, but it's not a. But here's the thing: we have another meta bit of humor here, Father Malone. So Alex asks Latka about his job, and Latka replies that he'd love to tell all about it, but his break is over. That's when Tommy, our good friend TJ Castronova, comes over and
Tommy
tells Latka.
Jeffries, do you mean?
Is that his last name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so wait a minute. So Tommy is actually Tommy in real life. I didn't know that it was like a Tony situation. That's cool. So he comes over and tells Latka that there's tables to be cleaned, and Latka puts on his apron and starts to bus tables. The joke there is that Latka is actually bussing tables for Mario's. Now this, as I just said, is a nice bit of meta comedy because, as you know, Father Malone, Kaufman famously bussed tables at Jerry's Famous Deli at the height of his taxi fame.
All performance art, man. It's all performance art. It just so he could tell people, no, I'm not Andy Kaufman.
That's what he would do. People would ask him, "Are you Andy Kaufman?" He'd say, "No, that's not me." Uh, so I think I'm sure that's what they were making reference to here. Anyway, that's the end of the first episode. Now we're about to start with the second part.
You know what I noticed, HP? I'm sick of the
What's that?
opening of Taxi.
What do you mean? The theme?
Yep. I'm sick of the bridge, sick of the credits coming at me. I'm sick of Angela and her dourness.
How could you be sick of one of the greatest theme songs in sitcom history, if
I
not television history?
I skip it now.
I love it. I only skip it if I'm just trying to get right to the episode because nothing changes. It's the same old bridge, same old cab, but that doesn't mean I don't love. I mean, look, I have the Bob James Genie CD on my phone. I listen to it in my car all the time. I celebrate his catalog. I love Bob James. So don't tell
I'm
me
not
that.
I'm not saying anything against Bob James or even that piece of music other than I'm a little tired of it.
Well, it's been 3 seasons. We've gone through these episodes with a fine tooth comb, so I guess that's natural. I'm not with you on that, but I can sympathize. The second part of this two-part episode begins. Louis has come to Mario's and he walks over to the table. He's crowing about all the losers talking about their success stories. Latka walks over and asks Louis if he's made a lot of money, to which Louis takes out a cigar and lights it with a dollar bill, which is like, whatever, it's a dollar bill, Mr.
Yeah,
Moneybags.
I would do that. Like, who cares?
Yeah, for a joke, I would do it. And then Louis says he's got to get back to work. He just wanted to stop by for a beer and a gloat. But then Tommy burst his bubble by coming over and telling Louis that he forgot to sign his unemployment check, which then cracks everybody up at the table. They think it's hilarious.
Because they're all doing so well, by the way.
Right. It seems it's a little silly for Louis to be.
I know they're making
this.
fun. They're making fun of Louis because Louis came and acted like a big shot and he's a loser, just like them. But like, come on.
There, yeah. So Louis then insists on telling them his story now of his job after.
Wait, none of the
Sunshine
people in the
Camp.
first segment have jobs at the end of their stories, right? Like nobody's like,
Pretty much.
and I'm still working there today. It's like, oh, and now here I am.
The only one who does is Latka, who's bussing tables as
That's
as
right.
we
That's
speak.
right. Okay, you're right.
But you're right. Everybody else, because Tony is no longer collecting for Lulu. Elaine was fired. Yeah, that's it, right? And Latka's
Yeah,
still working.
and yeah, and Reverend Jim is not going to
Oh,
be working for that
that's right.
company after he destroyed some woman's house while trying to sell her an encyclopedia.
Yeah. It was a long way to go. We can't overstate how ponderous that
I
vignette was.
wish, you know what? I probably would have laughed and laughed hard if he had just told the story.
Oh, you mean
And
just yeah,
yes, and
without
briefly.
showing it. Yeah.
Yeah. If there's any comedy to
Yeah.
be drawn, it's his physical comedy. I think he would have been just as funny just relating the story because he's very,
Yeah.
very funny. That's all.
It's just within about 20 seconds, not even, you know where this is going to end up. Once he starts dumping stuff on the floor, we've seen 100 permutations of this over the years on different shows. I mean, it's pretty standard at this point. But anyway, we'll get back to Louis's story now. We cut to a stockbroker's office where Louis basically breaks into this guy's office looking like a dime store mobster. I think the stockbroker even makes a joke about guys and dolls
I
being
didn't
in
know
town.
Guys and Dolls was in town.
Yeah. So Louis tells the stockbroker, the guy's name is Mr. Gray, that the problem with this company is they're too afraid to get dirty. Louis convinces him that he's just the guy to get dirty. He uses this word a million times. And in his words, he was born dirty. Mr. Gray is convinced, and we cut to Louis
No,
at
but
a
he
desk.
there's more to it than I'm gonna fight dirty. He describes a plan of volume rather
Sure.
than the regular thing. So okay. Because if somebody just walked in and was like, I'm gonna be a fucking nightmare, then they would go, they would say, no, thank you. We have a little bit of class here.
He does, you're right. Louis does make the case that he's his strategy is dealing in volume, which actually for it's like Boiler Room, like that Ben Affleck movie, right? Where it's all about cold calls and making as many as you can, and it's a numbers game at that point. So this guy, Mr. Gray, gives him the job, and then we see Louis at his desk. He's boisterously taking calls, and you only ever hear his side of it, but it's Danny DeVito, and it's really funny. Louis on this call is trying to convince someone to get out of AT&T and into genetic research. I think he talks about cloning, which at the time was a kind of a buzzword. And all of the other brokers in this room are giving Louis dirty looks, but he keeps like it's Danny DeVito. He's cackling with satisfaction. He's doing the Louis thing to the hilt. And it's actually pretty funny. He's even cold calling a widow whose husband he found his obituary in the newspaper yesterday, and then he tries to convince another caller that he's a long lost cousin that he has a great deal for him. He's doing every dirty underhanded cold calling trick in the book. And finally, as this guy Mr. Gray is looking on, Louis even tries talking a child into getting his mother's checkbook out to invest in some stock. Louis gets off the phone, and Mr. Gray informs Louis that he's fired. He says Louis just doesn't fit into the organization. Gray says, look, you're doing high volume business, but you're just too loud. People are complaining about you, Louis. And the problem is, no one can stand you, and everybody thinks you're disgusting. That he talks about how he's chewing too loudly
Everyone
during
makes
lunch.
noises when they eat food. They make eating food noises.
Right.
By the way, that's Michael McGuire there. He is a journeyman character actor. I know him mainly from he did a stint on Dark Shadows, the original Dark Shadows back in the day.
Oh,
Uh
really?
yeah,
The
he
soap opera.
absolutely. He was on that for a while. And oh, what's the other thing? Of course.
What?
He's on Cheers. He's Sumner Sloan on Cheers.
Yeah,
He
that's exactly right. You're
he's the
right about that.
professor that Diane Chambers was affianced to, who broke up with her and dumped her, and then she ended up at Cheers. So he's actually the catalyst for the entire series. Cheers.
In this one two-part episode, we've pointed out 3 or 4 people who have gone on to have, pretty substantial roles on Cheers. It's kind of cool,
Tune
you
in for
know.
the next episode, everybody. Just
Oh
saying.
yeah, we're going to see one of the best. Louis takes all of this and he points out to Mr. Gray that he's better at this business than anyone there, but he just doesn't look the part. So he says, I'm going to leave here feeling good about myself because I succeeded. This is what Louis says to the guy. And Gray has to stay here knowing that some guy off the street outdid him. Mr. Gray, he realizes that Louis is just doing this to kind of make himself feel better about getting fired. And he's like, I'm sorry, and he leaves.
That's the way it's got to be, man. You're unpleasant.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry to have to break this to you. Have a nice life. So Louis leaves, but not before grabbing this giant computer terminal off the desk and taking it with him. And that's the end of Louis's little vignette.
And it made me think of you ever go to IKEA?
Of course.
And
The phony
the
like
phony
TVs and stuff.
laptops and stuff that they
Yeah.
have.
I love those
that,
things.
yeah, I guarantee that is exactly what he lifted off of that. Like that's just a prop computer, like a blow mold version of a computer that they just populate background sets with.
Oh, for sure. Because an actual computer, I remember, if it's anything like a television from that period.
He would have toppled over like a fucking bag of potatoes.
Yeah, those are like cathode ray tube monitors. Those things are fucking heavy. Anyone out here who has just been dealing with, LCD and plasma TVs or what have you, you have no idea what it was like to actually get like even like a 32-inch television, a tube TV. That thing probably weighed somewhere in the neighborhood of what, 150 pounds, 110 pounds. These were heavy.
Remember when circuit boards were heavy?
Oh yeah, seriously. So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he just hoists this computer under his arm and leaves like it's nothing. So we go back to Mario's, and Tommy announces a phone call for Louis. This will become relevant in a minute. Now, Father
Here we
Malone,
go.
it's
Here we
Bobby's
go.
turn to give the story. Now, I think you agree with me on this. This, hands down, is not only is this my favorite of all of these vignettes, but this actually might be one of my favorite Bobby stories, period, over the whole course of the series.
100%. This is when I think of Taxi. This is one of like maybe top 3 memories of Taxi, and definitely my favorite memory of Bobby. If this had been Bobby Wheeler from day one, it would have been a whole different show. And this should have been Bobby Wheeler from day one.
It really is. This is what we're going to get. Just to give you a little bit of a preview on this, we're getting a basically a typical Bobby story in miniature, because this vignette takes no more than 5 minutes tops. It's very quick, but you get a condensed version of the best of these Bobby aspirational episodes, basically. Bobby says to everybody that he got a job in entertainment. Well, sort of. He took a job at a department store as someone who plays a part at parties. Now we cut to a swanky house somewhere. The doorbell rings. This woman answers, and it's Bobby, who announces that he's here for the party. She opens the door and reveals Bobby dressed up as the Easter Bunny. He's got this full Easter Bunny costume. He's got makeup to make him look like a comical Easter Bunny. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great. And just as the woman goes to get the kids to bring them in for the party, Bobby recognizes her as somebody named Cynthia Beck, the film director. That's what he says. Bobby says he loves her work and he insists that he's a great actor, but she's really hard to get into. The woman's like, "Look, sorry, the kids are
She's
getting
hard
restless."
to get into see.
Right. She's hard to get into for a meeting. And she's like, I'm sure she's just like, look, the kids are she's very nice to him. The kids are getting restless. Let's, whatever. She's okay.
What a nightmare, by the way, from her perspective. If like
Sure.
this had been her show, it'd be like, who? Oh, come on. Who is this? Leave me alone. Just
this guy?
Please entertain the children.
Yeah, this is the kids' party. What are you doing? So the kids all run in. There's probably like half a dozen kids in this room. And Bobby starts in with the Easter Bunny bit. He's singing the song Peter Cottontail and jumping around and kind of shaking his butt like a bunny rabbit. It's very, very cute. And then when the woman walks back in with cookies for the kids, Bobby sees her, and all of a sudden he switches gears and he announces to the kids. This is almost like something out of it's become an episode of I Think You Should Leave, because he announces to the kids. Bobby announces that he has a special surprise. He's going to perform a scene from the Broadway play, Whose Life Is It Anyway? And he's saying this to the kids like, hey, kids, here's a special surprise. And I remember
It's a
this.
play about a paraplegic
Yes.
deciding whether or not he should kill
No, no,
himself.
no. Correction. He's a quadriplegic.
Oh, right,
He
right.
he had I this movie used to play on the early days of cable with Richard Dreyfuss starred in the film version. And it's this I think it's a character who had an accident and lost the ability. He's paralyzed from the neck down. And he fights through the course of the story of this play slash movie to be able to kill himself because he no longer feels like life is worth living. So this is Bobby dressed as a cartoon rabbit. He's going to perform a scene from this awful, dour, sad,
And he sets
dramatic.
it up for them. Like he
He
tells them
does.
what we just told you
He does. He says, "I need you to pretend, kids, that
in
I'm
that
paralyzed from the
sing-songy
neck
type
down."
voice. Yeah. Now you got to
Yeah.
imagine.
So I mean, this is genuine. I'm laughing just thinking about this. First, he mentions to the kids that the Easter Bunny is also a serious artist. And he lays down on this couch and explains that they have to pretend that the Easter Bunny is paralyzed from the neck down. And they cut to the kids all looking at each other like quizzically, like, what is going on here? These are actual little kids watching this. And Bobby launches into this. All of a sudden, the sing-song voice is gone, and Bobby launches into this
So good.
monologue.
It's
So
really
good.
good.
And he's the Easter Bunny, but he's giving this heavy dialogue about how life isn't worth living, and he doesn't feel human anymore. And this woman, the woman who's
In the
hired him,
Easter Bunny outfit, behind that makeup, life is no longer worth living now that I can know. Oh my God.
we've seen this episode but probably I know I've seen it dozens of times over the years, and I am still laughing at the memory of it. It is so good. This vignette alone is what makes this two-parter worth watching.
It's unfair. You know what? It's unfair how good it is because it pumps the fucking rating up at the end of this show.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right, Father Malone. So the woman, the mother, walks over and kind of gives him a quizzical look as we cut back to Mario's, and then Bobby informs the other cabbies that she was so impressed with his performance that she offered him a part. Dot dot dot. The clown at her daughter's birthday party. Whoa,
Uh,
vaudeville.
and you know
Whatever.
what though? They should have cut to that and him doing Godot.
That's right. Waiting for Godot.
I exist.
Finally, it's Alex's turn to talk about his job, and he took a job as a night watchman in an office building. He says the first couple of weeks were pretty boring, but then he went a little nuts after that. This is another vignette we're going to pretty much breeze through because it's all physical comedy in this case, just like the gym thing. We cut to Alex. He's in some kind of security room with a bunch of monitors. And the monitors are actually really live, they're actually broadcasting real images. He's so bored, he's actually counting the numbers of hairs on his head. He's up to like 12,000 something. He notices a security camera on the wall and he goes over to it and he kind
Before
of
we go any
points it with,
further, before we go any further,
yeah,
bring a book. Okay, go ahead.
that's exactly it. I mean, this is not a taxing job. I would agree with you that if he's got time to count hairs on his head, he can get a book and just read,
Yeah, it's not like you
whatever.
have to look at the monitors the whole time or like Lost, like push the button every 20 minutes or something. This is obviously he just has to sit there, and if anything goes wrong, he's supposed to spring into action, but they're not monitoring him. So
Right.
he's at his own left to his own devices.
At one point, he says, "Okay, time for my patrol," and he goes, "All right, camera one, camera two, camera three. Oh, fantastic! Now, and that's it. That's all he has to do every
This
hour.
is my
Just like,
dream job. So any complaining that goes on in this episode is unwarranted.
sure. So he notices a camera that's actually in this security room, and he goes over to it. He does this weird thing where he kind of uses his eyes to point it to the chair that he's sitting in, which is actually pretty clever when you think about it. And now he has this camera pointed at him so that he can you put on a little performance for the security monitors. Now, here's the side note that I wrote down, Father Malone. Do you remember? I'm sure you do. When video cameras were a new thing, seeing one's self on TV was a revelation, wasn't it?
Exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I wrote in my notes. Like there was a time when if you were going to like show up on like a national, not a national, but like a local station or something, it was like you were a fucking Academy Award winner. Like
Yeah.
showing up in a newspaper was a big deal. Never mind actually seeing yourself in the furniture that we're all staring at for most of our lives. Like, oh, what is this crazy validation?
It was amazing. But I would go further and say, like when I was a kid, I would go to Lechmere, which for those of you listening who didn't grow up in the Northeast, that's an electronics. It's sort of a Best Buy before there was Best Buy. Eventually went
Hey,
out of business.
Gretchen.
They had a section of just video cameras. They had all these video cameras on a little cylindrical kind of table with monitors so that you could point it at yourself. And it was like, wow. It's stupid to think about it now because we've all got cameras on our phones that we can just do this all the time. But to actually
We are
point it at,
broadcasting right
yeah,
now, and we have video component if we wanted to show it. So yeah, it's not novel at all anymore, but it was massively novel. Like, and everyone did what Alex is doing here.
yeah.
Every idiot would stand in front of the fucking video cameras in the middle of a department store and put on a show.
There used to be these programs I know there was one in Boston that they used to play that were basically like community tryouts or something. I don't know what the name of them would be. I think there was one in New York that was pretty famous where on a Sunday morning, people would go to the studio and perform like stupid human tricks almost like
Who
a,
will it
a-
be? Star of the day.
right. And, they might sing a song, they might juggle, they might do a dramatic monologue, but it was a big deal to get yourself on television. So, no, which is not to say that's what Alex is up to here, but I'm just saying that the idea of watching oneself on a television was very novel, like you said at the time. So I'm not going to undersell that part of it. So effectively, Alex,
Particularly when you think of somebody Alex's age at this point, has probably only ever seen himself in photographs. So, and now he's not only seeing video of himself, he's seeing himself live, which is a whole other weird thing.
what he effectively does is put on a mini TV show for himself called the Alex Rieger Show. And that's where your line from the beginning of the episode comes in, where he's looking at himself on this monitor and he says, "This is what I look like. This is what I look like when I talk." He does these little tricks. He fake juggles an apple, and he has like fake laughter and fake applause, and finally he ultimately signs off his fake TV show with the Star Spangled Banner, which listeners of a certain age like us will remember. That's how TV stations used to sign off of their programming day. They
2
would do this.
a.m., baby. Say goodbye to programming for some stupid motherfucking reason. No, you don't get to watch anymore. Why?
The thing that changed all of that was infomercials, because then they realized that, hey, this dead air where we're not broadcasting anything, we can actually make money off of that by people shilling these terrible products. And that opened the door for this kind of programming. So you never had the station go offline effectively. You would just
Yeah,
have
but
a
I
commercial for
remember
something.
some local affiliates never really going offline. I don't remember TV 38 going offline. Like, you know, I remember movies through the night and then programming the next day. It wasn't new uh programming going on. It was the major networks that would go off the air, is my point.
Alex does this little
Oh, the Star
pantomime.
Spangled Banner. Can I just point out that he does everything that they did in the Star Spangled
Yeah,
Banner? My favorite, of course, is the flag waving.
the
Yeah,
flag waving.
where he
Yeah,
takes
yeah.
his arms and he wiggles them like the waving of the flag, you know, and then he does the marching, because then they cut to the troops, like, you know, saluting and marching. By the way,
Yeah.
that is the most militaristic security guard outfit I've ever seen. His cap should be like a 4-star general cap. I didn't understand it. There's like a giant brass insignia on the front. I'm like, really? You're just sitting in a chair looking at monitors.
Well, not only that, but I believe he actually had a sidearm with him, which I don't know too many
He did, because
rent-a-cops that would
when
have
his
that.
replacement comes in, it was like I was really looking at it, and it was clearly like a Colt Peacemaker from like some Western prop store.
Yeah, and in a holster. It's like, what is this rent-a-cop, the security guard, going to need with a gun?
Well, we never found out what they were guarding. You know,
What they're guarding, yeah. But I would say that the boredom and the lack of any action, to me, it's implied that it's just some business, some building downtown that probably Like it's not like NORAD where it's government property. It's probably just like I don't know, like the Prudential here in Boston. It's probably no big thing, but you know.
Or
But
maybe
again,
it's a creature encased in ice and they're just praying it never wakes up.
something Lovecraftian that he's guarding. Who
That's
knows?
right. That's why he's supposed to sit and watch those cameras.
Got to watch it. Can't take his eyes off. So he's in the middle of finishing this. He's imitating fighter jets flying, which is also something you'd see in the sign off when another security guard walks in and is aghast at this tableau that he's just witnessed. The weirdest thing about this is who is the person who plays the security guard that walks in, Father Malone?
It's Grandpa Al Lewis from the Munsters and
It's
Car
so
54, Where Are You? In the briefest of bit parts.
it's so weird. He just kind of walks in and he's like, "What's go?" And when Alex notices him, but the guy is actually sympathetic. He says, "Look, the first couple of weeks here are tough, but when you've been doing it over 20 years like I have, you learn to handle it." This guy's name is Henry, by the way. And Alex sheepishly gets his stuff and he leaves. And then Henry sits down at the security station and proceeds to go into this little cabinet below his feet and take out a ventriloquist dummy that's dressed up in the same exact security guard uniform as that they're all wearing. And then he does his own fake TV show with the puppet. And that's the end of this vignette, effectively. It's kind of an odd ending.
Yeah, not as good as the Bobby one.
No, this I will say we've more or less breezed through it. This one did have some charm because it's ostensibly a one man show of Alex fighting boredom, and it is there's something funny in that, but it's no Bobby as the Easter Bunny doing whose life is it anyway, but it's probably maybe my second or third favorite of these vignettes. So we cut back to Mario's and Louis wraps up his call. The Sunshine Cab Company, wouldn't you know it, Father Malone, was just bought by a new owner.
Oh,
And
thank
anyone who
God.
wants, yeah, we were worried about that.
Is it Mr. Givens?
That would have been a twist, really, to bring it all home. But we don't know who it is. Louis says anyone who wants their old job back should follow him. And after some deliberation and admitting that they all stink at everything else they've tried, they all file out of Mario's, including Latka, who flings his apron off. And for some reason, he tells Tommy to take this job and shove it.
Because that
Where
was a
does La-
hilarious song on the radio at that
It
time.
was, and it was a movie starring Robert Hayes. If
You
I
can take your
recall.
job and shove it. I remember that from the trailer. Isn't Tim Thomerson is in that and he drives a monster truck?
Is he? Is it Bigfoot? Is it the
It's got to
monster
be
truck?
Bigfoot. That was the only monster truck at the
Would
time
have to be.
that movie came out.
Yeah, but my point is, where does Latka get off? TJ Castronova, Tommy's giving him a job. Like Tommy's a good guy. Where does Latka get off?
Laka's just being fun.
I guess. So
Also Laka's a deviant at heart.
he's perverse. We've established this. So we cut to the garage, and everyone is amazed that this place feels like home. It's kind of an odd ending for this episode. Louis calls out the cab assignments. We cut to B-roll of taxis rolling out as we end this
And
episode.
then Randy Newman's Home begins to play. Feels like home to me.
So that's the episode. That's the conclusion of this two-part episode. Now we're going to talk yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
Just a reminder, we grade these episodes on a scale of 1 to 5 yellow lights. 1 is the worst taxi episode. 5 is the best. And as further as our custom is, Father Malone, we throw it to you. What do you give on the job parts 1 and 2?
If the Bobby segment wasn't here, we'd be getting 2 yellow lights. I think this episode, as far as these throwing a bunch of segments together, anthology type episodes, I think this is a vast improvement over Memories of Cab 801.
804.
804, whatever.
Anyway.
But man, do I give it 3 or 4? You know what? I'm gonna give it 4 because that the Bobby segment has been so burned in my mind for nearly 50 fucking years, it seems, that it's so prevalent in my mind that every time an episode that was Bobby centric would come on while we were watching, I would hope that it was that one. So I'm giving it 4 just for that segment.
Oof. That's high praise indeed. I will still stick to my guns. I gave it 3 yellow lights for pretty much all of the reasons that you led with on this. Here's the thing, for a pickup episode, it's actually pretty good. I know we kind of downgraded the Jim vignette, but we already talked about the pleasures of Mr. Givens. He's really funny. The Louis one has its charms also, and again, the Bobby episode is one of it's the standout in this particular episode, but it's one of the best out of all of the seasons that he was on Taxi. So
You know what? I'm right, actually. I think the guest cast alone gets us to 3 yellow lights and Bobby gets us to 4. So I'm going to stick with mine 4.
I want to join you at 4, but I got to stick to my guns. At the end of the day, there's still some things that it's hard to overlook the economy of this episode, and I mean that, by the nature.
You know what? I got to say that's true. These episodes flew by. Like, there have been ponderous Taxi episodes, and this one did not feel that way. Like, the first one ended, and I was like, wow, okay.
You're right. I can't do it. I want to do it, but I just can't. So I'm going to stick with 3 yellow lights. So 3 from me, 4 from Father Malone. That's going to do it for this episode. Father Malone, where can folks find you when you're not clocked into the garage?
Check me at Midnight Viewing, the horror anthology podcast on twice a week. Mondays is Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. And then Fridays is a rotating show. Either we're looking at horror anthology television or there's some sort of themed festival going on week to week. HP joins me for the fests. Mike White joins me for the horror anthology television. And it's just me and my dog on Mondays.
The fests are fantastic. Anybody who likes the Predator movies, we just finished our first complete fest, which was Yautja Fest, covering all the Predator films in the franchise. That was
including the Alien versus Predator movies, which some people don't count, but we do.
Exactly. So in total, what was it, 7 movies? Some 7 movies, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot of ground to cover, including a day of release of the newest Predator Badlands. So I would encourage you to check that out. It's great fun. For myself, I host the Noise Junkies Music Podcast, and I also have a Bandcamp site, hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com. So, folks, thanks so much for listening. Please feel free to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, or rate us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to send me an email, it's hpmusicplace@gmail.com. For myself and Father Malone, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.